price action on Bitcoin and Cardano has been pretty good lately over the past couple of weeks. Maybe this is a cause of M2 going up. That's primarily what most people think it is, what I think it is, and possibly could be leading us into a summer rally. Now, because of that, I think Cardano altcoins and even Cardano native tokens are in a prime spot to have a good summer rally. If Bitcoin goes up over the summer, Cardano goes up over the summer, it's natural that these Cardano altcoins are going to want to follow suit, right? And when they follow suit, we want to take advantage, okay? I already see some Cardano native tokens setting up in very interesting VCP volatility contraction patterns and cup and handle patterns. I want to share 9 Cardano native tokens that are interesting me today that I've been watching this week. Let you know why. Try and make this video as short as possible, as concise as possible. Not all coins mentioned are like great fundamental plays. These are purely technical plays that I've been watching over the last week or two, maybe even a little bit longer. I'm going to omit or leave out some tokens that are still good tokens, but they're not setting up currently. So they'll have to be included in a different video when the setups change. So this is primarily a setup video, what Cardano native tokens are setting up, so you can invest in those ones first and then move into the next ones as they also start to set up. Now these setups can fail, so let's just look at them and we'll talk about each one as it comes through. Okay, the first one on my list, and basically what I do is I just roll through every Cardano native token in the morning every day, and then like at the evening, something like that. But the first one on my list I've been watching is AGIX. Now AGIX, from a fundamental use case standpoint, I don't really think most people should bother with it. I think AI and Singularity and all that's kind of a little out there, but whatever, we can still try and make some money on it, right? And so you can see AGIX has some very good moves. This is a daily chart we're looking at, and on the chart you'll have the yellow is a 50-day, the orange is the blue is your 150-day, and then the orange is your 200-day moving average. Now what's happening here is this is not a good time to invest, right? This is obviously like going below the moving averages, you can see, is when price is declining. But what's interesting is that as the moving averages go horizontal, especially this 50-day, that can typically mark a bottom in price. You can see this back here. And all of the charts across all the Cardano native tokens, we're going to use the same metrics. On the daily, it's going to be 50, 150, and 200 moving average. And on the weekly, it's going to be 30 and 40 week moving average, all right? But here you can see how, you know, back in January 2024, this base formed with the 50-day moving average, and then the 50-day ended up getting above the 150 and 200-day moving average. And so AGIX is still a little bit far ways away from that, but what is important is that it is setting up in this beautiful cup and handle base pattern. You could argue that this down here is the base, the actual base. This is a cup and handle, and what might be happening right now is AGIX might be building what's called a volatility contraction pattern. And basically what that means, we're going to see a couple of these as we look at it, so I'm going to explain it one time, is that this is the top. This is the top where volatility is contracting against, and you have price come up here and then come down and come up and come down and come up and kind of build this thing. And it can happen one time. It can have one move. It can have 1, 2 moves. It can have 2, 3 moves. It can have as many moves as it needs to really contract before breaking out to the upside on high volume. And so you can see here, down here, we have this volume bar. Volume is not really breaking out tremendously. You can see how, look at how big this volume is over here. That's much higher volume. This is arguably much higher volume than what we're seeing today. And so a characteristic of this volatility contraction pattern, let me remove some of this here, is that as we move to the right, as price moves to the right over here, volume is going to shrink. So this volume is going to shrink drastically, much like it was right here, right? You can see how low. If you look up here as we do it, you can see the volume in ADA per day. The volume in ADA per day up here is about 23,000, 45,000, 9,000. That's very small, 19,000. But today, currently, we're at around 94, 100, 40,000, right? So what we will see as AGIX moves to the right over here on this headline, it is going to squeeze its volume down, meaning that selling is reducing. There's less AGIX on the open market. That will give us a catalyst to possibly have one giant buy day. And if we see volume come in here and spike majorly, something like that, or something like this, right, that stands out above the rest, we could see price pop up way above and maybe come up here and touch this moving average. So the first chart here is AGIX. I think what AGIX is doing could possibly be a very good volatility contraction pattern building a base. And when we move that to the weekly chart, we can kind of see the same thing. Let me change our moving averages here to now the 30 and 40 week moving average. And what I think could happen here is price could break out from this cup, build this cup, maybe build a handle. Maybe there's two situations. Price can build this handle and then pop out and make its way up here to this 30 or 40 week moving average. Now that's a move of about, 30% today or 75% today. That's not a bad move to make in a couple of days or even a week. So the first thing is this cup and handle. The second thing that could happen is, well, how do you invalidate it? You invalidate it by price failing to break above this top line and basically getting back below these moving averages, the 50-day moving average. And so this is the AGIX is number one, building a beautiful cup here. Let's see if we need to get a handle. And the bullish trigger is if price, is if price breaks above this neckline. You can buy it as it breaks up and just ride it for however long it goes up. The way that you invalidate this is basically if price falls, probably like 8% below this level, somewhere down here, and breaks below this 50-day moving average, that would invalidate the move. But the first one's AGIX because of that beautiful cup and handle. Long term, we're going to have to wait and see for it to actually make a new trend. But this could be the very start of a new trend. But long term, it has to get above these 50, 100, and 200 in order to have a massive move like this. This is just a short-term trend. But that's number one. The second one is SNEK. SNEK is a great token just listed on Kraken. Going to get a lot of volume, going to get a lot more eyes on it. That's all bullish news, right? Well, SNEK is doing the exact same thing that AGIX is doing, which is very interesting. You can see how back here in before SNEK's recent run-up, it did a cup, right? A little cup and handle, very short, not really even a handle. Maybe you could call this the cup and the handle right here, very small. But you can see that this cup action lead to the breakout up, right? Even maybe this is the cup and this is the handle and then the breakout, right? We can see the same thing happening here in SNEK, very resemblant of that, where SNEK gets above the 50-day, SNEK is back above the 50-day, and now it is riding this, the orange is 200, the 200-day. Typically when SNEK gets above the 200-day, you can see back here, above the 200-day, we get this massive rise, falls below. Above the 200-day, we get a massive rise, falls below. Now it looks like SNEK is back above the 200-day, and maybe having a couple days below, maybe it's going to chop around here for a little bit. Maybe SNEK is going to come in here and do a volatility contraction pattern, come down, touch the 50-day, come back up, come like this before the breakout begins. So I'm watching SNEK because, again, we have another beautiful cup and handle pattern here, volatility contraction pattern, VCP. You can see it occur right back here. Look, this same move that's happening here is, again, what is happening now. And so all I'm waiting for SNEK to do is get above all these moving averages, or at least, basically, we want this moving average to fall below, this moving average to come up back, this moving average to come right here. And SNEK, if it's still in the VCP, boom, that's blast off zone. So it doesn't have to happen exactly that way. The way that it's invalidated is SNEK falls below the 50-day again, right? That totally ruins this whole VCP setup. A VCP, a cup and handle, basically, you don't want this to fall more than like halfway, right? And so if this price falls more than halfway, this is about halfway, then it's kind of invalidating the scenario and saying we're going lower, right? And so SNEK is doing the same thing as AGIX, building beautiful cup and handle. If it were to break out from like right here, right, start to make its way up and break out, you could buy it somewhere right around here and just hang on for dear life, right? And if you buy it and it goes up and starts to retrace, I'd probably do about a 8%, right? If so you buy it right here, maybe give yourself about 8 to 10% on the downside, somewhere right in here. And if it breaks below, then you just consider selling and wait for the setup to occur again. But the second one is SNEK for those reasons, building another beautiful VCP cup and handle pattern, just like it did back here and just like it did right back here, okay? After SNEK, we have NTX. This is a little bit of a, I wouldn't say smaller, but not many people talk about it as much. Again, you can see this is the pattern I'm looking for. Look at this beautiful base that NTX has built, cup, handle, breakout. I bought it on the breakout right here around, 0.025 ADA. Excuse me. And it looks like it's just simply coming back and retesting the breakout. That's totally fine. I don't have to sell yet. I'm, maybe like in a % or two of profit, but I bought around here. Then I can wait until it, comes down and touches the moving average to see. That gives me about a 10% stop loss. And if price invalidates this move, and it in fact does come all the way down and breaks below the moving average like that, I can simply sell, take my 10% loss, and move on with my life. What might happen here, though, is that NDX comes down, retests this breakout zone before, continuing higher. And so that's what I'm watching there. There's some moving averages above here on the daily chart. On the weekly chart, though, I think the moving averages are a little bit different, and it gives us a little bit of room here. What I'm playing is possibly this 40% move to the 30-week moving average, or possibly a 90% move to the 40-week moving average. And maybe this is what causes, another base to form, and it'll touch it and come down and touch it and accumulate again, and just kind of be this new stage one base and accumulation. But I do think that there's possibility for a little 40% move here that you could definitely take advantage of off of that daily chart cup and handle pattern that we're seeing again right here. So NTX is the third one. The fourth one is NVL. I really think NVL is a good token. It has been going counter to the total crypto market, counter to the Cardano native token market, and it has been rising while everything else is falling. You can see that right here. I played NVL, probably one of the best plays I've ever made, and I didn't even realize I was doing it at the time. But look at this. VCP pattern, perfectly executed. This is what we're hoping SNEK and AGIX and NTX do, right? You get this kind of cup, you get this kind of handle, and you get a breakout. You get contracting volatility up the right side, lowering of volume, and then a breakout that just leads into, a new high for the area. Now what's happening with NVL is very interesting. It's kind of built this top, and it broke out from it, and now it's coming back to retest it. Why I think this is interesting, though, is if you go out to the weekly chart, NVL doesn't have a lot of data, so you can't use the 50 and the 150 and the 200 very well, and you put on the 50-week moving average, you can see NVL is just sitting right on top of that 50-week. Now, if you go to the 30 and 40 week, you can see NVL is crossing above that 40 week, and this week and next week are going to be big decision makers. What I mean by that is NVL is going to decide, is it going to sit on top of the 40 week this week and next week, or is it going to fall back below and come back and test the 30 week? That's going to be very important. So this week and next week are going to be very important for NVL. But if it does sit on top of that 40 week, which would lead it to also sitting on top of this 50 week, that could be very, very interesting for what that means for NVL continuing further. It could mean that it builds a base here and then continues higher. And if we look at the daily chart, we're kind of seeing that as well. This is the 50-day, 150-day, 150-day, 200-day. And we can see that there's a couple scenarios that could happen with NVL. One, it could sit up here. It could come back down and test these moving averages. But it looks like, 50 getting above the 100 and the 200 is a very bullish sign. Maybe NVL is going to go higher. I like the price that it's at right now. I would like to see it to get a little bit more volume out of this area if it's going to break out. But when you have a strong asset like this in a downwards market, you have to take notice of it, because when the market turns around, there's a high probability NVL is one of the first to break out if this momentum keeps going. It's not too far off its all-time high. Only about 75% of a gain off of its all-time high. That sounds like a lot, but I mean, compared to a lot of other Cardano native tokens, it's probably better than most. So I like that NVL has been counter trend. We can see what happens here around this area. Does it break down lower, retest the moving averages and fail, or does it continue higher for longer? Maybe it has to retest the moving averages before going higher, but it looks like to be building a new base. Again, another perfect VCP pattern executed. So I'm trying to see what happens here this day, tomorrow. How does tomorrow act? Does it close on this base? Does it continue back higher? If it continues higher, I would like to buy some and ride that wave higher. All right, LQ is going to be our next one. LQ is interesting because it is also, let me show you, this is the big chart of LQ. You can see, let's look at the weekly. It's been going down for quite some time as tokens have been released for a very long time. Well, what's interesting is we put in this low. Let's get the 30 and 40 week moving averages here. And LQ put this low in down here back in 2024, mid 2024. Then we had the great run up in November, and LQ price did very well, breaking above the 30 and 40 week moving averages. That's very bullish. Came back to retest it and fell below. But what's important is that it has not set a lower low. It's found a base, and now it looks like it's possibly breaking out of this base. Let's go back to the daily. You can see on the weekly chart, it's running into that 40 week moving average as resistance. Okay. So that's why it's maybe moving a little bit slower. But when we go back to the daily chart, put on the 50, the 150, and the 200-day moving average, you can see this is the base LQ is working in. Now, what I like about today is it's kind of breaking out of that base. This is a kind of a make or break zone, deciding if it's going to go even higher or if it's going to come back down. Today and tomorrow, maybe 2 or 3, 4 days are going to tell for us. But I think this would be a pretty great buy point. What you can do is set a stop loss here for about, 10%, and you're back at the moving average, right? If it goes all the way back to the moving average, maybe, if it breaks below, you just take your loss. But over the days, what's going to happen is moving average is going to go up if the price keeps going up, and you'll have a great spot to stop yourself out if it turns negative on you. But this right here, and if LQ keeps breaking out, say you buy right up here at about 3.628, you could have a little 20% move on your hand if it stops at these moving averages. If it breaks above these averages, you could be looking at a much higher return. I like LQ because the tokens now, the circulating supply is being reflected in the chart. Okay, 20 million out of 21 million fully out in circulating supply, and that's why we're getting market dynamics like this. LQ has been building a great base, and looks like it's trying to have its time to get out of that base. Maybe it needs to come up here. Maybe it needs to build a little volatility contraction pattern. We have like this. It can go 1, 2, maybe it needs to build a little third one before it really breaks out, so price can chop over here for a second. But we'll have to see how it interacts with everything else before that happens. But that's why I'm liking LQ. That's going to be our fourth one, maybe fifth one. That's LQ. I think that is a good one to watch right now. Now we're going to get into a little bit riskier one, Palm. When looking at Palm, you really have to look at this on a 2-hour or a 4-hour chart. It's not the best situation. It really is not the best situation because it's just so new. But what I do like is when you look at this on the 4-hour chart, price is staying above this 50 moving average. So this is like the 50 moving average on the 4-hour chart. It's kind of hard, kind of weird to talk about like that, but this is holding this moving average. And so maybe price comes back down and touches it again. Maybe it just keeps continuing higher. I think, if price breaks out above this high, you could be in a pretty good spot to go ahead and buy. I mean, like right here, somewhere in this range is going to be a high, right? It's going to be a resistance point. And so it looks like Palm is trying to build bases and head higher. It has great daily volume. Maybe if price gets up here to this high, maybe the high is like up here, maybe it's here. I'm not 100% sure, but it will find a spot, maybe touch it, build another cup and handle. And that's all we're looking at here. You can see, look at this cup and handle that we have, cup handle, or you can call it a VCP of 1, 2, breakout. Maybe the same thing is going to happen here. Okay, we have our first one, cup. Maybe it's going to build a handle. Maybe it's going to build a second cup before our breakout. That's what I'd be watching on Palm. And if that happens, you can buy it on the breakout. If it fails, the only thing you need to see is you need to see prices come down, break below this support, and then it will also break below this moving average. You can sell out of it, take your loss somewhere up here, and just avoid a major loss, but have potential for gain. So this is one I'm still debating about whether I want to be in it or not, just because it is exactly so new. We'll just have to see how price happens here. The hard part is that 2-hour and 4-hour charts, price is moving so fast, it's hard to keep up with compared to like a daily or a weekly chart. Now, after Palm, the other one I like is NIKEPIG. This is everyone's favorite Charles pet. But what's interesting about this one is, again, it is building this V cup and handle pattern, VCP pattern, and it looks like right now price is just getting squeezed between this right here. What we want to see is if this happens, if price comes here, there's two scenarios. Scenario one, price gets pushed into this area, volume breaks down, and price breaks up. If price breaks up to about 0.00436, maybe like right here, just consider buying and seeing how high it goes. At the worst case, you'll get stopped out somewhere down here at maybe, I don't even know how much percentage loss that is, but not a huge loss, maybe a 10% loss. You can call it quits. The other scenario is price moves to the side, right? Price breaks into this area and it breaks down. That would consider it to be bearish and you wouldn't buy it at that point. So if it breaks up, you can buy it and then just see what happens. If it goes up higher, maybe move your stop loss up. If it decides to come back down, you just take a small little 5, 10% loss and move on with your life. But again, NIKEPIG, we can look at on the weekly chart, move it over to the 30 and 40 week moving average. You can see where the resistance is going to be. The resistance is going to be right here. This is the 30 and 40 week moving average. And what's interesting is that 30 weeks trying to get above that 40 week right there. And so is price going to follow it upwards? So I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see. On the daily chart, you can see price is riding that 30 and 40 day really well. It is also riding that 50 day really well, trying to get back above this blue one, the 150. And then if it gets above the 200, that is very bullish. So that's what I'm watching on Nike. Again, another cup and handle or VCP pattern right here. The last two are going to be DEDI and Hunt. DEDI, I think, is really interesting because I want to see if this is where the low is. It's not 100% guaranteed. It's definitely not 100% guaranteed. But you can see how price built a base here and broke above the 50-day moving average. Price looks like it's also trying to build a base here. And what I'd like to see is if price can get into the 50-day and break above the 50-day, that might be a good chance to take a little risk on it, because at the end of the day, you can make the same move as it is right here. It's not a VCP yet. It's not a base. This is still a late stage 4 downtrend. And ideally, you're not going to buy here. It's not a great time to buy. What you would want to wait for is price to move to the side, moving average to move to the side, price to get above the moving average, price to probably come up here, build a cup and handle, and then break out, and you buy it on the breakout right there. That would be the ideal spot to buy DEDI. But I think DEDI is just interesting because I want to see if it builds a base, breaks above this moving average, maybe something like this, and you can trade it for a little, maybe 40% move right there up to that resistance level. So that's why I'm watching DEDI. I want to see when the base forms, the stage 1 base forms, so then we can make a position in it. Lastly, I like Hunt. Hunt is doing the exact same thing as DEDI. I think Hunt has been beaten down so hard the last couple of weeks that it might be building a base here as well. And I want to see if this base holds and it gets back above this moving average. If it gets above this moving average, 50-day moving average right here, you could see a move of about 50% up to the next moving average. That could be a great little trade right there for anyone. So that's how I'm watching on that one. The reasons I don't bring up LenFi or any other tokens right now is just because the setups are not there for me. I'm definitely changing the way that I invest after this very big bear market that we have all ensued, or not really a bear market, but it's just like sideways tariff market. And I think we all would have liked for this bull market to start out a lot better. I'm still bullish on LenFi, Cardano, Bitcoin, Ergo, Alephium, so many tokens. I still really appreciate what they're doing, and I'm still holding in my wallet, IAG and stuff. But I'm really trying to bring charts more into my fundamental and technical strategy, and the chart on LenFi to me is just not there yet. Maybe it's building a base here. Maybe it can kind of get up to this resistance level. If that happens, I'd make a case to trade it a little bit more, but I'm still holding my LenFi bag, still okay with what's going on. And then the same thing follows through for IAG. I know some people will probably ask about IAG. IAG, I just don't think it's the best time to buy right now because price is breaking below that 30-week moving average, this is the 30-week moving average and 40-week moving average. Price is breaking below. It's going down to the bottom of this kind of band I have here. And now if we go to the daily chart, put on the 50, 150, and 200 day, you can see that these are curling down. It's just doesn't seem like the best time to buy IAG. What might happen is it might build a base right here and then make its way back up to a new high on that Fortune 50 announcement. But it's not my job to guess bottoms. It's not my job to guess bottoms. I don't like how these moving averages are going. There's no cup and handle. There's no VCP. There's nothing for me to really take into account. And so for me, it's not worth taking a trade. I still have my long-term IAG bag that I'm holding from way back here, right? From way back here. But I'm not actively doing anything with it right now. I'm not going to trade it short-term in my trading portfolio. And so prices just seems to be falling. It needs to build a base like this before I decide to do anything else with it. That's what I'm watching in Cardano. There's a bunch of Cardano native tokens that you can definitely try and invest in over the next couple weeks that I've been watching. If price keeps going up, I will make some trades on those things and probably try and get a little 40% here, 50% here, use my stop losses, use my breakouts on how to do that. But that's what I'm watching. If you want to learn more about the VCP and the cup and handle, get in my newsletter. I write some really great newsletters down in the description, Crypto 100X Blueprint, and I can teach you some more stuff about what's going on. It's absolutely free. If you're still watching the video, I'd appreciate a like and a subscribe. Drop a comment if there's any chart you want to see specifically more of. I can dive deeper into that. Any other cryptos, Cardano, Bitcoin, Solana, Aave, XRP, let me know. I'll make a video on it. But other than that, I hope you really enjoyed this video, and we'll definitely see you in the next one.